Hey, it's Bitty Penny. Welcome back to my channel and welcome back to part 2 of the free card class for paper layering and ephemera placement. So we will be diving right in. I have 8 more cards for you and lots of tips and tricks. And we are playing with the Simple Stories Simple Vintage Lakeside collection. So you guys, stick around. Grab a drink, grab a snack, and let's make some cards. In part 1 of the free class, we made these 8 cards based on the sketches from the Simple Stories card kit that goes with this collection, and those were my leftover chipboard pieces. We used all of the ephemera die cuts. Today we're going to use these cardboard cut aparts as well as these pieces of ephemera, but not these. I'm saving these for a different project. Okay, I'm bringing in some stamps. I ended with these last time, finishing off the insides of the cards, but we're bringing those back today. I'm also dove into my dies and I grabbed a few different dies. We had a frame in the first inspired cards. I also grabbed these for making frames, both sets of those, and then these as well for like a deckled edge. I grabbed some paper for matting layers if I decided to go that way. A lot of that was from my scraps, as well as the Sonoma Park Lane paper pad that I showed you in the first video that I told you we would be using in the second one. So I'm going to flip through here real quick just so you can see some of the papers. I did not have any 12 by 12 sheets of pattern paper for this collection, and so I needed to use what I had in my stash already. And I thought these really complemented the collection very nicely, color-wise, pattern, just everything. So I will select a number of these to use and do some die cutting. And I did all of my die cutting first. So if you have an idea about what you want to work with, then you can do all your die cutting in one process. That way your assembly of your cards doesn't take quite as long. It's a mass making technique that does speed up the process significantly. So because some of the cards had frames, I made sure I had those. Other cards had either those picture viewer slides or doilies or labels. They also had like the tree slices. And so these are ways that I mimicked that using what I had in my stash. I thought that this pattern might be nice in a few of the options. I also cut out plain white stitched circles for those labels. I was originally thinking I could go around them with a color if I wanted to, ink blending or with a marker, but I don't think I ended up doing that for any of the cards. I'm reviewing the cards and just getting an idea again about them, and I'm going to push them all off to the side. I'm going to bring back out my scraps first, and with this paper I'm going to recreate some of those rectangles. So that's why I looked at those cards first. Basically there were quite a few cards that would have rectangles either going vertically or horizontally, combining different patterned papers. And you know, when you're working with a paper pad, don't stress. You don't have to stress about the patterns. They're all designed to go well together. So when you're working with a paper pad, universally, for the most part, across all companies, you can mix and match the pages to go together. Here I'm going to cut some card fronts for myself. I think all of the cards in the collection that Simple Stories designed had full card fronts measuring 4 1/4 by 5 1/2. Now, when we're doing a freestyle the way we are here today, we can make the cards any size we want. We can make 5x7, A2, 6x6, whatever we want. So I did cut down some bases that I could use on 5x7 cards. We're going to make at least 3 of those today. I did cut down some 6x6 pieces as well, but I didn't end up making any 6x6 cards. Maybe next time. I'm also just going to cut some other random strips and different pieces, so I have lots of options. Again, I'm taking the same approach that I took when I was doing all of my die cutting first, getting a lot of card fronts just ready to go so that once I start the assembly process and building out my cards, I don't have to stop and cut my paper every time. Now, this is very easy for me because I'm basing my designs off of the designs of the first 8 cards. If you're designing your own cards, maybe you're only going to do a card at a time, then of course you could cut your paper one at a time. My paper pad had these cut aparts included, and I thought these 3 right here measure 4x6. I thought they would just be lovely on a 5x7 card, so I went ahead and cut those out. I also cut out these other pieces thinking that they could go on the inside of the card. If this is the first video you're seeing in this free card class, I invite you to check out my channel. Go back to Monday's video. That is the first video in the class. It's great for beginners and also just to show you how the Simple Stories card kits work. We do expand upon it a little bit, but this video is designed to build further upon it. We're just using 2 specific products from the Lakeside collection today, and then we're using items from my stash to create these cards. I did use a post-it note. I keep these on my desk, and this way I could separate my card fronts and I knew what size they were designed to go with. When you have lots of stacks of paper, it's nice to have them organized. I put all of my cards into the original order that I had worked with them, and I'm just going to work to kind of recreate them. And there's a few takeaways, of course. So here we go. We're going to start working on the first card. I'm going to bring each one into frame so you can kind of see what I'm working with. And I did need to grab a frame. Now, obviously, when I put that dark wood frame against the dark wood background, that didn't work. I needed contrast. So I did go for the tone on tone of this forest green color. And it's very similar to the tone on the original card. I'm going to bring in some scraps and some washi tape to create the layered look on the card front. So just like how we worked in the first video, you need to think about background and foreground and layer things across. So I'm using my grid mat here. I'm going to straighten the card, and that way I can lay the tape straight across. Most of the time when you see me crafting, I put glue on my washi tape to ensure that it'll stay down. But I'm not worried about it in this case because I wrapped it around the back edge and there will be paper glued on top. So I'm quite confident it'll stay secure. And just laying this pattern paper on top. And for this piece, you would want to glue your frame down first, and then you can glue in the center part. I did choose to use a different pattern on the inside, just as our original card had. And now I'm using just a simple strip that is a scrap from cutting down my 12x12 paper. And now we have lots of layers and patterns going on. I did grab similar ephemera pieces that looked like our original card and brought those in. Of course, if you were working with a different collection, or if you wanted to remake some of these cards but with a different collection, you could most certainly do that. These aren't necessarily card sketches per se, but definitely there's a ton of inspiration here. And, I think that there's a lot of learning when you're trying to case someone's card and work from someone's card. I know that I myself feel flattered when I see people recreating cards that I've made or using a process like Franken paper or something like that. I always feel really inspired by their inspiration. Okay, moving on to card number 2. And I realized this is card number 2. So, you know, it's easier for me to recreate these because I'm using the same collection. So I had similar things, but definitely like this washi tape I brought in, the Sonoma paper I brought in, and all of my die cuts. So at the same time, you can definitely make it your own. I really love this fox paper. I think it's so fun. One of the things that I find inspiring is when I see how others layer things. I really do love the construction of cards. Some people really love to stamp and color, and there's all different types of card makers in our hobby, which is a very beautiful thing. And I discovered a couple of years ago that I like construction. I like building fun folds. I like piecing cards together, layering cards up, and constructing a card. So that's how I consider this process and this method. I really love this ephemera piece in particular, this like pouch. It's like an envelope pouch with all kinds of collected nature memorabilia sticking out of it, and I just really love this piece. I think it worked out that it's just on a white stitched circle background. If you're just getting started in the card making hobby and you're trying to figure out, where you fit in, what your style is, and collecting equipment and supplies, I think that if you have the means of die cutting, that getting your basic shapes is always a good thing. So having circles in particular, I do a lot of template cutting and no dies, no problem. And circles are the hardest shape for me personally to cut. So that would be a die that I would definitely recommend is some good circle dies. And if you get some dies that have the same shape but lots of sizes of it, that's really nice because you can always build frames and outlines, and you can do a lot with those shaker cards. The possibilities are really endless. When I first started card making, a die cutting machine, dies, and embossing folders is what I was all about. And to this day, I still really enjoy that aspect. In fact, stamps came later for me. I've always been a person about texture, and I love pattern and paper. So I think that's why this style is so appealing to me. Okay, so I'm just layering more and more paper, just as the inspiration piece shows. Now theirs is printed, so those two red lines, the blue paper, the red and white, the green, those are all printed onto one piece of paper. Here we're recreating that with little strips of paper. And I think it's cards like these why I can't even throw away smaller strips of paper. Who's with me? Oh my goodness. So here I am. I did not have a tree ring die in my stash, but just cutting out that wood plank pattern paper that came in the Sonoma pack with that funky edge circle die really worked for me. It gave me the nod that I was looking for to recreate these cards. Now this one's very similar to the first card. I know that it is, and I don't mind that. I actually grew up with ducks. When I was young, I think I was 4, my dad filled the backyard with little tiny ducks on Easter, one Easter. Well, they were chicks. They were all supposed to be chicks, but it turned out there were a few ducks in there. He got rid of the chicks sometime after, and we kept the ducks. So we grew up with mallard ducks, and we had a pond. When it was funny, when we moved to a place with a pond, and the ducks came with us, and they lived there happily ever after. And we would just go and feed them and watch them grow. So I love ducks. I love everything. Every time I make a card, I'm like, oh, I love whatever. Butterflies, ducks, bunnies, you name it. It's all wonderful. And it's all really wonderful on a card. Am I right? Okay, I'm going to glue my card front down. And this is a 5x7. So that back green piece, that card front piece, is a 4x6 piece, just in case you're wondering. Actually, I think it is. No. It's 4.5 by 6.5. Sorry. I've been cutting a lot more of my pattern paper to 4.5 by 6.5 for my 5x7 cards. Okay, so for this card, I did not have a doily die, or if I do, I could not find it easily. Everything in my craft room is a mess right now. But I liked this die. It's an Aztec die. I think it's called Aztec Sky or something. It's from TLC Designs. And I loved recreating this. I could have made this card over and over again. It just made me so happy. I really love this version. It's funny, some of my cards, I like the recreated version better than the original, and then others, I liked their card, the original Simple Stories version, better than mine. And I think that comes down to paper choices more than anything. And the ones that maybe the background's a little too busy, maybe I could have switched up my patterns a little differently, things like that. But overall, they're all beautiful. So now I'm still using the same kind of placement. That's something we talk about in the first class, where not everything is just front and centered and just so, but some things are down low, some are up to the right. The placement was different depending on the card. So this one left more space at the top for the sentiment, and I really liked that, and I want to stay true to that when I was recreating them, because that was an aspect that I really enjoyed about putting the kit together. Some may be wondering, why am I calling this a free class? Isn't it just another bitty penny video, another bitty penny tutorial? And it's really not. I really tried to approach this as a class for you guys. The videos are longer than I've been putting out lately. And I'm trying to take my time explaining different choices and aspects of card making in this way. And it's a two-parter. I've never done a two-part before. So I really hope you enjoy this format and that you have had a lot of takeaways by the end of it. So this one, I do have glue just like oozing out of the top of that sentiment, but I most certainly fixed that right here with my finger tool. So now that's fixed. And I really love this card. It's funny, I did not put any like enamel dots or Nuvo drops or pops of color or this calls for confetti on any of my cards. It was really hard to resist, but I was like, nope, not gonna do it. I'm gonna make 16 cards with no bling. It's amazing. I pulled it off. I can't believe it. So I loved the sentiment on this one. I think it says no Wi-Fi here. It's so funny. Like I live in Texas, and the power grid's been a little inconsistent, we'll say. And it's always a little sad when there's no Wi Fi. But when you're intentionally going for a hike, right, it's okay. That sentiment just made me laugh because sometimes no Wi Fi is a very sad, frowny face situation. Okay, so for this card, I am using that cut apart from the sheet. And I did back this, so there are two layers of green. This is very similar to the last card we just made, with the circle being down lower on the card front and with the mushrooms and the leaves. But I did truly love that aesthetic and that design, so I just didn't mind doing it again. Now, you can tell at this point, I'm really deviating from the original design. I'm not bringing in that pattern paper, the one that with the fish and all of that. I am making this another 5x7 card, and I'm just pulling like little nods from the first card. This is one of those cards where I like their version better, but hey, that's okay. You got to give it a go, right? All that I would have done differently was I would have picked a solid page the way that they did, the solid background that is black on the card on the left. Or I would have changed up my centerpiece just a little. I do like all of these colors though. They are so rich and so beautiful. And it's not that this card is bad. It's just when you have more contrast, I think it's easier to see some of the details. And although this card is even better in person, I think some of the details maybe are a bit lost. I don't know. You guys tell me. But I loved throwing this bear on there. I don't think we had a bear in the first set of cards. If you're interested in knowing this, maybe you've already noticed this, but Simple Stories varies everything. So if you buy the card kit and then you buy like the ephemera and the chipboard accents and you buy some of the other things, they're not all just repeats. So you can buy all of those products, you can buy the whole collection, and each one is slightly different. They're all perfectly matching and have the same, feel and the same designer and the same colors. They are a whole matching collection, but they're not repeating the same things over and over. So for instance, like the chipboard pieces that you get in the card kit are not the same ones that you buy in the individual kit. And I think that is so smart. Very clever, makes us want it all. Especially if we really love a collection, right? So here I am working with this set. Now we had a big rectangle, a couple of circles, and now I'm adding a frame. So this card kind of has a lot going on, but I really like it. This isn't one, I don't think I would have thought of this one on my own or tried this on my own if I wasn't recreating this design with my own supplies. So again, I think this process has been so enriching for me, and I hope that the takeaway is just as enriching for you. I really appreciate the time that I took in absorbing the process. So I will tell you guys, if you really like this collection, like I really like this collection, after using it almost all up, I'm already like, can I think of any more projects? Can I budget to get a little bit more? But one of my dearest crafty friends here is Debbie at Project 39 Mini Albums. Big love for Debbie. She has also fallen head over heels in love with this collection. And she has multiple videos on her channel right now where you can see her build the most amazing mini album and box with this collection. She also got the card kit. I saw she hauled it the other day, so I know she's going to be making cards. I'm going to leave the videos to her mini albums down below because they are spectacular. Absolutely spectacular. And if you've enjoyed this free class, you will absolutely love her channel because she does thorough free tutorials all the time. She's masterful. Okay, so that's going to be linked down below. This card is a little bit of a hot mess. I wish I would have put that mushroom more in the middle, but instead I didn't. And what this card is missing, so let's look at the card on the left. The card on the left has that giant butterfly. And one of the things I can tell you about layering ephemera is you want different sizes. But the way that they layered that giant butterfly in the middle, and it has that contrasting, so blue and orange contrast. So like that orange butterfly with that blue banner, and then the little trinkets around is the right thing for the eye. I wasn't thinking like that when I put mine together. I had scraps left over. Well, not really scraps, but I had pieces left over, and I was just creating a collage. I was also in a little bit of a hurry, but not to make excuses. But I think that's why the one on the left is so much more appealing to the eye than mine. It's not that my card is bad, but they brought in that contrast of that orange and that blue, and the scale of everything really worked. I did try to fix it. I added in this little dragonfly, and it's not terrible. It's just not quite as good. I can admit it. All right, you guys. So in my left hand was the original card. Here in my right hand is the one that we did here together. I did do the insides of all these cards, but you'll actually want to go watch the first video to see a more detailed approach to the inside. For these, I took a shortcut. I used cut aparts from the paper pad and completed the insides of these cards. And they're beautiful. I used a little bit of ephemera. I used leftover pattern paper and just finished off the cards actually a little more simply than I did in the first video. Oh my gosh, I just love this card. I think it's my favorite. Out of all 16 cards, I think that's my favorite card. This one's lovely too. I'm trying to capture the gold on the paper. It's just very elegant. I love nature. I actually just caught the most beautiful butterfly on our zinnias as I was walking in today. And so I'll put a little clip of that up in here for y'all. But yeah, I love nature. So this set just really called to me. I hope you guys have enjoyed this class. Thank you so much for spending your time here with me. I value your time and I appreciate it, and I hope you leave feeling inspired, and I hope that you learn something by spending your time on my channel, or that you feel more creative today. So thank you so very much, and I will catch you next time. Bye.